Good morning, this is News Channel 209. I'm Kate Bradford.
And I'm Kelsey Human. Today we will be covering many important topics, but today we're starting off with Traven from sports.
Hello, and thank you, newscaster. My name is Traven Walker, and I will be your sportscaster for today. Today I'll be talking to you about sports events that happened in Europe since 1980. Starting off with more recent news, we have Cristiano Ronaldo scoring a hat trick to put his soccer team Juventus over their opponents Atletico Madrid. Cristiano's 3 goals were the only goals scored in the game as Real Madrid beat Atletico Madrid 3-0. His first 2 goals were headers. Take a look for yourself.
Here, in the early stages of the second half, it's into Ronaldo! Saved by Oblak.
What a save. No, it's in. It's over the line.
It's gone over the line and Juventus are level. And it's Cristiano Ronaldo again.
What a header. I thought Oblak had kept it out initially, but immediately referee consult with his watch. The ball crossed the load. Another magnificent Cristiano Ronaldo header. And Oblak at full.
This match is flying by. Bernardeschi falling! Cristiano Ronaldo is there yet again against Atletico Madrid.
Great cross, but what a brilliant, brave header from Ronaldo at the back post. It was a poor header from Morata that turned over possession. The ball went wide.
2 beautiful goals, if I do say so myself. His last goal was scored off of a penalty kick. Here it is now.
It's Ronaldo against Oblak. It's 3! It's the record-equaling Champions League 8th hat-trick of Cristiano Ronaldo's career. Juventus 3, Atletico Madrid 0, and it's turning into a magical night for the Italians in Turin. They are less than 5 minutes away from the quarterfinals.
Cristiano's 3 goals were the only goals scored in the match as Juventus beat Atletico Madrid 3-0. What a game for the gentleman out of Portugal. Going back to older news in sports history, we have the 1982 FIFA World Cup. This was the 12th World Cup played, and it was played in Spain between June 13th and July 11th of 1982. The last 4 remaining teams in this World Cup were Poland, Italy, West Germany, and France. In the semifinals, Italy beat Poland 2-0, and West Germany and France tied in regular time 3-3. West Germany then beat France in a penalty shootout 5-4. In the third place game, Poland beat France 3-2. This World Cup was won by Italy, who beat West Germany 3-1 in the championship. The championship was held in Madrid, and this was Italy's 3rd World Cup win, but their first since 1938. Going to the awards for this World Cup, the Golden Boot, who's given to the player who scores the most total amount of goals, was given to Italy's Paolo Rossi, who scored a total of 6 goals. The Golden Ball, who's given to the tournament's best player, was also given to Paolo Rossi of Italy. The Best Young Player award was given to Manuel Amoros from France, and the FIFA Fair Play Trophy was given to the team of Brazil. This was a great tournament, and congratulations to all teams. Coming back to more present news, we have recent announcements about the NFL's international games. In last year's NFL season, there were 4 international games, 3 of them being held in London. This year, they will increase both of those numbers with 5 international games, 4 of them being held in London. 2 of them will be held at Wembley Stadium, and 2 of them will be held at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is a soccer team in London. Take a look at some of the highlights from last year's international game.
Lens to his right. Stops, throws. For Dallas Goedert, the rookie tight end, scores! Touchdown, Philadelphia!
Phillip Rivers going to throw it on first down and going to go deep down the sideline. Got his man open and he hits him. This is Tyrell Williams for 75 yards and a touchdown. Over the middle, that's complete. Inside the 5. Doug Baldwin in motion. Russell Wilson. End zone throw, touchdown. And the Seahawks strike first. Jerron Brown.
Good luck to all teams participating in these games.
Thank you, Traven, for covering sports.
I can't wait to see how Ronaldo performs in the Champions League.
I'm so excited for the 2022 World Cup.
And make sure to stay tuned for those international football games.
Now on to weather with Christine Vaughn.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, I'm Christine, and here's your weather forecast. So, we've had some pretty bad, unsettling weather here in Europe for the past few days. There's a storm passing through the UK, and it's making its way east into parts of Scandinavia. There's a line of clouds, which is a developing area for low pressure over the North Sea. Norway and Sweden should expect some gusty winds and heavy snowfall, and there's also heavy snowfall to come to the Alps. However, things are looking quite dry and settled around Turkey and Greece, and Spain has been experiencing some warm weather lately, but a lingering cold front will bring some cooler weather to the north. In further news, Europe has been having large protests having to do with climate change. Brussels, for example, has been having weekly student-led protests where students are skipping school to berate the local and the EU politicians about the lack of urgency having to do with the issue of climate change. These students marched through the rainy streets of their capital in efforts to urge politicians to change something. We spoke to one of the students at this protest, and here's what she had to say.
Deforestation is the biggest problem, I think. Politicians should do more to reduce CO2 emissions. I don't understand why flights are often cheaper than taking the train. Flights should be taxed more, and politicians should make it easier to ride bicycles rather than drive cars and buy locally produced food.
These students make good points. However, many politicians argue that the political reality of this situation isn't as easy as it seems. They don't believe that they have enough support in the parliament to pass a bill that will cut greenhouse gas emissions by 95% by the year 2050. Some people may ask, why should we care about climate change and global warming? Well, during the 70s, scientists realized that the ozone layer, which protects us from harmful rays of the sun, was starting to thin and break down. Countries around the world agreed to stop using the substances that were ozone depleting, and this agreement was formalized in the Vienna Convention for the Protection of the Ozone Layer in 1985 and the Montreal Protocol on Substances that Deplete the Ozone Layer in 1987. These two treaties were the first to ever reach universal ratifications in the history of the United Nations. New substitutes for ozone-depleting chemicals, such as F-gases, aren't harmful to the ozone layer, but are, however, greenhouse gases. What are greenhouse gases, you may ask? Well, a greenhouse gas absorbs and emits radiant energy that then gets trapped into our atmosphere, in effect causing a rise in the temperature of Earth. The worst part about these F-gases is that they often have a far larger impact on climate change than traditional greenhouse gases. Even though F-gas emissions are far smaller than those of CO2, some F-gases have effect 23,000 times more powerful than the same amount of carbon dioxide. F-gas emissions are being monitored under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the EUFCCC. They have proposed a reduction of the use of hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, and a reduction of F-gases by 80% of today's levels by the year 2030. The hydrofluorocarbons continue to increase even though there are more environmentally friendly alternatives. Many believe that the restrictions and limits on the use and emissions of hydrofluorocarbons should be increased. Even though most ozone-depleting substances are being phased out, some substances are still allowed and used for certain niche applications. Many suggest that more cost-effective alternatives should be developed. There are still ozone-depleting substances present in old houses, some refrigerators, air conditionings, and more. And if these substances are not properly reclaimed and destroyed, they will be released into our atmosphere. Thank you for tuning in to this update on weather and climate change. Now for your political news with Kate.
Thank you, Christine, for covering the weather. My name is Kate Bradford, and I will be covering politics, in particular, the election. This election is coming up soon. The start date is May 23rd, 2019, and the end date is May 26, 2019. In this election, the European Parliament will be electing a new European Commission President and a new head of the European Council. In the EU Parliament, members of Parliament, also known as MEPs, join into various cross-border political factions according to their political stance. There are 10 of these factions, and they each have a say on who is the head of the European Commission, also known as the European Union's executive arm. There's a 2019 projection of these factions in which I will show you. The light pink is the center left, and they are least likely to win due to the voters feeling as if they have not delivered on their core principles in the past few years, in particular, their promise to lower inequality. The light gray is the right wing and the right parties. They are most likely to gain anything from this election. The process of voting on members in the European Parliament is somewhat confusing, so I will try to make it as easy for you to understand. In earlier years, you would vote on 751 MEPs, but this year, due to Brexit, which we will get onto later, you're only voting on 705. This is 46 less. The election consists of 3 sections: a closed list, an open list, and a single transferable vote. The closed list is when voters only vote for a political party opposed to voting for individuals. The open list is when voters are given the opportunity to select individuals rather than parties as a whole. A single transferable vote, also known as STV, is a voting system designed to achieve proportional representation through ranked voting in multi-seat organizations. Members of Parliament must be at least 21 years of age, a citizen of Ireland, or a resident of European Union citizen, and not be disqualified from election in Dáil. Dáil is a national parliament and is located in Dublin. Members of Parliament mostly consist of lawmakers associated with political parties for each state. Thank you. And now on to terrorism with Kelsey Human.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Human reporting with terrorism from past and to present events in Europe. The number of fatalities, terrorist attacks between 1970 and 1990 amount considerably more than those killed between 1990 and 2015. In 1988, more than 425 people were killed in terrorist-related attacks in Western Europe. From 2000 to 2015, terrorist deaths dropped 50%. Europe is safer now than it has been for decades, and is far safer than any other country in the world. Europe has seen many devastating terrorist attacks, including Madrid train bombing, London bombing, and the Paris attack. This chart uses information from the Global Terrorism to show the number of deaths caused by terrorism between 1970 and 2015. One fatal terrorist attack that happened in Europe was the Madrid train bombing in 2004. This targeted commuter trains and started at 7:37 a.m. 10 bombs exploded 4 trains in the city. This killed 191 people and injured over 1,800. This happened 3 days before Spain's election and had major political consequences. An investigation began and focus was on militant group Al-Qaeda.
All the attacks on the city's railway system, which turned out to be one of the bloodiest days in modern Spain. Besides those who died, more than 1,800 were injured. Eventually, 21 suspects were convicted. Most of them are currently serving lengthy sentences, but 4 have been freed and a 5th is due.
The event that happened was the London bombing. This happened July 7, 2005. 3 bombs went off in London subways and on a bus during a rush hour. The suicide bombings were thought to be the work of Al-Qaeda. This killed 56 people and injured over 700. This was the largest attack Great Britain has seen since World War II. Here's some devastating footage from the aftermath of the London bombing.
Across 26 commuters were killed. This is the carriage next to the one where the bomb exploded. Pictures of that scene were judged to be too harrowing to release. And here at Edgware Road, it was revealed the first ambulance arrived 24 minutes after the bomb ripped through a carriage. They'd been given the wrong address. Above ground, the aftermath of the attack on the number 30 bus at Tavistock Square revealed the terrible force of the explosion. The questions, as yet unanswered, could more lives have been saved if the response...
The attack on Paris is one of the most recent terrorist attacks in Europe. This occurred November 13th and 14th in 2015. The attackers were armed with assault rifles and explosives. They killed 130 people and wounded close to 500. They targeted 6 locations around Paris. These locations included stadiums, cafes, intersections, and even a concert hall. 90 people were killed at the concert. ISIS claimed responsibility for these attacks. The people of Paris called these attacks the 3 Days of Terror. At 9:20 p.m., a stadium was bombed. At 9:25 p.m., a restaurant was bombed. At 9:30 p.m., another stadium was bombed. 9:32, another restaurant was bombed. 9:36, another restaurant was bombed. At 9:40, the restaurant and a concert hall was bombed. And finally, at 9:53, the last stadium bombing happened.
Thank you, Kelsey, for covering terrorism. Now I'll be covering a very important topic in Europe at the moment. This is Brexit. Brexit is the proposed withdrawal of the UK from the EU. This was scheduled 2 years ago to occur on March 29, 2019, at 11 p.m. UK time. This agreement will end if an extension is agreed upon, but this is unlikely. As I stated earlier, Brexit has lowered the number of members in Parliament by 46, which means there will only be 705 to vote on in this year's election. If the UK stays for 3 months or longer, they will be forced to participate in the election, but this is very unlikely. A referendum was held on Thursday, June 23, 2016, and 51.9% voted for the UK to leave the EU and 48.1% voted for them to stay. In the agreement made for Brexit by Theresa May, there is 2 parts. The first part is a 585-page withdrawal agreement. This covers how much money the UK owes the EU, which is approximately £39, which is about $52. It also discusses what will happen to UK citizens living in the EU and EU citizens living in the UK, and a proposed method of avoiding the return of a physical Northern Ireland border. The second part of this agreement is a 26-page statement on future relations. This deals with trade, defense, and security. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to News Channel 209.
The channel that keeps you updated on current news in Europe.
Don't forget to tune in next week for more updates on
sports,
weather,
and politics. See you next week on News Channel 209.